Good evening. Police tonight are continuing their manhunt for two Rambo-style bandits after a violent raid on an armour guard pickup at a Glen Waverley bank. The bandits opened fire with a spray of bullets from an M16 automatic rifle in an armed ambush that terrorised a shopping centre.
The first shots rang out outside the Commonwealth Bank just after 11 o'clock. Two bandits masked in blue balaclavas and grey dust coats jumped out of a red Kingswood sedan and opened fire on two security guards walking out of the bank to their armour guard van. One of the robbers was armed with a handgun, the other let loose with bursts from a powerful M16 automatic rifle. A customer testing a camera in a nearby video store recorded this graphic audio tape of the shooting. The bandits sprayed the front and side of the van with gunfire, punching holes in the toughened glass window. Bullets and spent cartridge shells littered the ground. The gun battle terrorised the crowd of lunchtime shoppers.
They were just two guys with the blue balaclava mask, and they were just shooting and shooting and shooting.
The security guards carried 2 bags of cash in mutilated notes. The masked bandits forced them to give up the money.
I don't know, they were shooting down, I take you just fell to the ground, and the other guy said, why does the sheet?
One of the guards was shot in the foot. His bloodied shoe and sock lay on the ground outside the bank. The other guard suffered scratches and pellet wounds. The guards were taken to the Dandenong Hospital. Both have undergone minor surgery and are in a satisfactory condition. Another guard who was unhurt returned the gunman's fire before they escaped.
The state government has ordered an immediate inquiry into Melbourne's wildly fluctuating petrol prices. In one of his strongest attacks on oil companies, Premier John Cain said he suspected they may be acting in collusion after price hikes of up to 10 cents a litre.
Understandably, motorists failed to understand why today it's costing $6 more to fill up the family car than it did early yesterday, from 47 cents a litre to 58 cents. Premier John Cain finds it somewhat mysterious and suspects something's wrong in the industry.
But when the change in the price is no longer 5, 6 or 7 cents, as has been the case, but 10 cents, there is something wrong out there.
He's demanding to know if the wholesale price is artificially high, because if that's the case, he can use state powers to bring down the retail price. But the oil companies strongly deny collusion. Shell says collusion is illegal under the Trade Practices Act. And Mobil, which last year lost $24 million, says oil companies certainly wouldn't act together to sell petrol below the wholesale price.
And the price of petrol is not the only commonly used item on the increase. Melbourne groceries are now rated as the most expensive in Australia, according to a new federal government survey.
It's official, it costs more to fill your supermarket trolley in Melbourne than any other capital city in Australia. Canberra comes a close second, followed by Sydney, Brisbane and Perth, with Adelaide being the cheapest. The Prices Network survey found that a standard 680-gram loaf of white bread varied from 68 cents in Adelaide to $1.38 in Prime Minister Hawke's electorate of Wills. Within Melbourne, size 13 frozen chickens ranged from a low of $2.99 to an expensive $5.70. Coffee in North Queensland was found to cost almost twice as much as the same product in Sydney, and yet a packet of biscuits in Melbourne was about half the price of the same packet on sale in Newcastle. State Labor Minister Steve Crabb, however, has disputed the survey's findings, saying a more reliable yardstick is Choice Magazine's survey by the Australian Consumers Association, which shows Melbourne to be the second most inexpensive city for groceries after Adelaide.
The opposition infighting continued today when former Liberal leader Andrew Peacock publicly criticised Victorian Party President Ida Ritchie. Mr Peacock attacked her lack of leadership for failing to quash persistent attempts to dump sitting MPs in several key Victorian seats.
The federal Liberals have faced a catalogue of political setbacks in recent days, the latest an increasingly bitter wrangle over key blue ribbon Liberal seats in Victoria. Ian McPhee, dumped recently from the Liberals front bench, now joins 2 other Victorian colleagues, Roger Shipton and Ken Aldred, under siege from sections of their own party. Federal Liberal leadership contender Andrew Peacock is the latest to weigh into the debate. Today he launched a strong attack on the Liberals' Victorian President, Mrs Ida Ritchie, for failing to crack down on moves to tip out sitting MPs.
It seems to me at the present moment an absolute abdication of the leadership of the Liberal Party, and I mean by that not John Howard, but the state president. And in this case, Mrs. Ritchie ought to be using her authority to stamp out these destabilising moves.
Late today, Mrs. Ritchie said in a prepared statement that the organisation was working to resolve its internal problems, and she called for an end to public debate on the row. The Victorian campaign is aimed at installing higher-profile candidates such as Elders IXL Chief John Elliott in safe seats.
Meanwhile, another political storm has erupted over the ABC's irreverent program, The Dingo Principle. After offending Iran with one of their satirical sketches on the Ayatollah Khomeini, Soviet officials are now upset after similar treatment to their founder Lenin and leader Gorbachev.
The skit featured a Frankenstein-style manufactured Lenin leading a chorus.
Roll on the Yuppie revolution. Yeah! I'm gonna wave my magic wand.
The Soviets are furious about it, going as far as to hint that trade sanctions might be imposed, the major target being Australia's $200 million wheat exports. But Prime Minister Hawke doesn't view it that seriously.
I wouldn't have thought that the relations between the Soviet Union and Australia have been jeopardised by this program. Do you advocate the direct Prime Ministerial control of the ABC? Well, then where do you go?
If you're a Soviet official in Canberra, you go to the Department of Foreign Affairs and lodge a formal diplomatic protest. Senior Soviet diplomat Yuri Belabrov labelled it a vicious attack. In his words, absolutely outrageous. And if you're ABC Managing Director David Hill, you go into conference with the show's producer, await the official complaint from the Soviet embassy, and then decide if anything needs to be done about it.
Ahead, the man who could hold the key to the shadowy Iran-Contra scandal is dead, while US presidential frontrunner Gary Hart struggles to keep his campaign alive, but at least proves he's a politician who keeps his promises.
When I announced my candidacy last month in Colorado, I said that I would make mistakes. Now, I am here tonight to say this is one candidate who keeps his promises.
American presidential candidate Gary Hart has confessed to an error of judgment over his involvement with Miami model Donna Rice, but he insists he's done nothing wrong. Hart spoke out today about the relationship which is threatening to undermine his campaign and credibility.
Before America's newspaper chieftains, Gary Hart tried to recover his presidential push, denying any misconduct.
No time did the woman involved and I spend an evening together, or a night together, as was suggested.
But America wasn't buying it.
If he should become president, he will have to take another oath.
Right.
How can we trust him?
Amen, sir.
The thing that bothers me is if Hart can't show loyalty to his wife, how can we expect loyalty to his country?
Hart did admit some fault in his predicament.
Did I make a mistake by putting myself in circumstances that could be misconstrued? Of course I did. That goes without saying. Did I do anything immoral? I absolutely did not.
If they thought the story was bad, it got worse. Donna Rice, denying any sexual relationship with Hart, apologised to his wife, but then told of another meeting with him, an overnight stay near this island in the Bahamas. Hart and Rice went there with others aboard this luxury cruiser, named Monkey Business. The married men and single women slept on different boats, though. Last night, she described herself as a typical southern girl, somewhat embarrassed by parts of a modelling career. Hart, too, is now embarrassed and yet to convince many of his innocence.
Former CIA director and key figure in the US-Iran Contragate scandal is dead. 74-year-old William Casey died in hospital earlier this evening from pneumonia after being admitted 10 days ago. His death comes as retired Air Force General Richard Secord accuses the White House of knowing and approving his involvement in the arms operation.
William Casey spent many of his years in Washington traveling to Capitol Hill to testify before congressional committees, and by all accounts, not liking it very much. Just before his hospitalization in December to remove a brain tumor, Casey, as Director of Central Intelligence, was in front of a House committee probing the unfolding controversy over the CIA's involvement in the scheme to sell weapons to Iran and use part of the profits to fund the rebel forces fighting the Marxist government of Nicaragua. But Casey never got the low profile he wanted. During his 5-year tenure as Director of Intelligence, he faced often harsh congressional questioning about himself, his personal finances, his possible role in the Reagan campaign's apparent purloining of some Carter campaign documents in 1980, and his appointment to the CIA of Reagan campaign aide Max Hugel, who quickly resigned after allegations of involvement in shady stock market dealings. Politician, lawyer, capitalist, spymaster, William Casey, dead at age 74.
And now for tomorrow's weather. Morning fog will clear to a fine and sunny day, a low overnight of 8 degrees with a top tomorrow of 19. And the forecast couldn't be brighter for the piano man Billy Joel, soon to appear in Australia in a sellout tour. It's his first tour since becoming a devoted husband and doting father, but says he'll be back later in the year with his wife Christy Brinkley and daughter Alexa Ray. Good night.
Who said it was going to be my last tour?
He'd never even heard the rumour, but then Billy Joel's mind hasn't exactly been on his work these days. There are 2 great distractions in his life at the moment. His wife, supermodel Christy Brinkley, and his daughter Alexa Ray.
I got some pictures here. That's Alexa Ray. She's 16 months old.
Alexa is his reason for cutting back the live shows. From now on, the tours will be much shorter.
That's the baby, that's me. Yeah, now that I have a baby, I want to be around for the kid. My old man wasn't around too much when I was a kid, and I made a promise to myself when I had children I wanted to be there for them. So I'd like to be able to spend more time with my family.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mal Walden's Melbourne, stories that are uniquely Melbourne, and Eddie Maguire's informed VFL segment doing the rounds. 2 more good reasons to watch Eyewitness News. We've got Melbourne at heart.